All right, welcome to SKS Media again, guys. Our special guest today is Sanjay Manandhar. He is a tech entrepreneur, has done a lot for the tech industry in Nepal and globally, but I'm not going to steal his spotlight and we'll let him talk on it. That said, Sanjay, thank you so much for making it.
So thanks for having me.
So, yeah, let's just for the viewers who might not know you, quick 60-second background on who you are and
Okay. So Sanjay Manandhar, I came to the United States in 1983, initially to go to United World College. Then from there I came to MIT, undergrad, grad. And then over the years, I managed to get an MBA, started tech funds and all that. But now, primarily, I run tech companies, mostly in software. In the interim, in August 1994, I did manage to bring Internet Nepal by way of a LEO satellite called HealthNet. But I'm sure we'll get into the details as we go along.
Sanjay, just hearing that, I feel like we have to debunk so many things. US let's talk a little bit about Nepal and Tamil, right? So what was it like growing up in Nepal, schooling, not too much, a quick snap?
Yeah, I think my parents, this is probably important because they're influencers, right? In my trajectory, my dad is an ethnobotanist, worked for a scientist, worked for the government and really collected plants and all that. Very, very strict about education. Mm-hmm. Mom, professor at Papua College, teaching child psychology and all that. So another, academic. So that's why, I ended up at St. Xavier's, at first grade. Yeah. In those days, again, I know things have changed and all that. It's co-ed and all that. In our time, it was boys only. So 1973, a long time ago, 7-year-old kid, and I took the entrance exam. I did not believe that they would do an entrance exam for first-year kids, first-grade kids. Anyway, so got in, and they double promoted from 2 to 4th grade, and then really I stayed in Godavari 5 years instead of 6, and then Jalo Hill from 7th grade to 10th grade. And then, as you know, there's sent up and SLC and all that. So I'm considered class of 82. So some of you may be St. Xavier's graduates. So a long time ago, 82. But in doing that, in about the SLC, you're waiting for your grades, right? For a long time, like 6 months or whatever. And
that is.
Yeah. So I don't know how it is today, but we're waiting like 6 or 8 months. And in that time, I did senior Cambridge. So, right, at GA. But I was also
Cambridge
it is because O levels once,
okay.
O levels. So I did O levels, and I was also accepted into ASCOL, Amrit Science College, and the contrast between St. Xavier's and Amrit Science was so stark that was the motivation. I said, I better go to the United States. So that was the motivation. So that sort of motivation came about. The zeal, the drive came about, I would say, when I was 16. Mm-hmm. So by the time I was 17, I managed to, win the scholarship to go to United World College in New Mexico. And the arrangement was full scholarship and airfare paid. So that made
before we even talk about that, and I asked this to everyone, it's because Nepal to go abroad, there's Australia, all these different countries, America. So what made you want to choose America? And how did that journey just look for you?
And again, so we're in 2025, and I'm sure the last 20, 30 years has been, let me see where I want to go. Australia, New Zealand, UK, US, whatever. When I was doing what I was doing, nobody went anywhere. Nobody.
What, 1980?
82, I was starting to think about this, right? Nobody went anywhere. Right? And in fact, my parents didn't even know that I was doing this, right?
Wow.
So when I got the scholarship, I had to, break the news to them. Mom, Dad, Nepali passport चाहिन्छ मलाई अब. They're like, what? Where are you going? I said, well, I managed to get the scholarship. Like, holy cow, okay. So it came as a bit of a surprise to them, but I don't know how they managed, but they managed to give me a passport. Especially for, these are PhD ko lai from, government and USAID at Taudi Jantio, but like they're a handful. Per year, maybe less than 5, less than 10 for sure. Per year. PhD मा मास्टर्स गर्नलाई जान्थ्यो गरेर अमेरिका आउनेहरू. Nobody went for undergraduate. Nobody definitely went for school. So United World College is basically last year, 2 years of school. So anyway, and a friend of mine, said, you ought to apply here. And I said, okay. And I thought you just apply and get in. But turns out it was a whole interviewing process. And so I got in. But, Nepal Kathmandu in particular was very, very, sparse. If I had to guess, there were 400,000 people. So from our house in Nayabansa, you could see lush green rice paddy fields, and from beyond that, you could see Bagmati. But now I know whenever I go, I feel like every time there's more concrete, more buildings, more houses. Got it. And I think this is just urbanization, but also centralization, Nepal situation. But anyway, so that was early childhood. I'm the oldest of 3 boys. So it was a very loud household. We fought like crazy and all that. And over the years, both my brothers also came to the US, and they're also in the Boston area.
So now that you're like, okay, more US Tansu, all that happened, you got the scholarship, and you feel like there's more to dig in, because you have so much of professional experience. I want to talk more on that, right? So you came to US, but what was the experience like being one of the only few people that came? Like, okay, you landed in US. Let's hear the story.
So Nepal, I had been in Nepali plane, propeller planes, duichoti. Actually, Nepal was gako, actually Pohara gako, right? And in fact, Nepal I was 6 years old, and I went by myself, and my dad picked me up over there, right? So already, crazy. But then and of course, the United World College school paid for the ticket. So I had to go get the ticket, and Ujamanama Estun to ticket. Panna paltoni, So, and then the first segment was go to Delhi. And I'm like, wow, this plane flies fast, because propeller plane by jet to Delhi, and then you stay like, I don't know, 6 hours or whatever in this, Delhi airport. And then it was Transworld Airlines, which doesn't exist anymore. It already went bankrupt a long time ago. TWA later, I went to Frankfurt, then JFK. JFK, outside New York City was my uncle, my mom's younger brother. And he came to the US in, I would like to say, late 60s or early 70s. And he was a PhD student here, and then later on worked in a chemical engineering company. So my mom had given me his phone number. But again, you guys are very used to this. But in those days, there were things called payphones. And I did not know how to use a payphone. And plus, I didn't have currency, American currency. I had $400 American Express checks.
So what is this American
Express? So these are called travel checks, and it's like a treasurer's, check. So you have to sign it, and if you give it to someone, it's as good as a $100 bill.
Wow.
Right. So American Express issues them. And to Zamanama, you could get at most $400 from Nepal Rashtra Bank. And somehow, I managed to say, okay, I'm going for a legitimate reason and all that. And they allowed me to take $400. And that was pretty much all of, I think, what my parents had. Around the same time when I was getting my ticket and the $400, I had to get, the F1 visa. So you get, and I'm sure most of you all have done that. You go to the American embassy with the I-20, and you get your F1 visa. The consulate came outside. I was the only one. There was nobody, and he came out and said, "I was the only one." And he shook my hand and said, "I've never had to give an F1 visa to a kid going to high school. So I just want to see who you are." And I think he was also trying to do some diligence. Does this guy even speak English? But again, remember, I went to St. Xavier, so English was quite good. So these are like so many firsts that happened. And now here we are in New York City with $400 American Express travel checks, and I cashed one. Right. Got cashed. But it takes the payphone takes a dime and a nickel and a quarter and all, and I didn't know what a dime was. I didn't know what a nickel was, a quarter, right? And then you ask a few people. Again, remember, language is important. And so the fact that I knew English, and I'm sure I had an accent or whatever, but it was, it got me through. And they finally, even they didn't know how to use, this particular type of payphone, because you had to put 1 and 7 digits, no area code. They didn't know that you didn't need it. So we got through it eventually. And the first thing my uncle says is, "Where are you? New York is a very dangerous place. How can I get you?" And he's in a birds of the New York, right? Not in the city. And JFK is right there, right? So he said, "Do not move. It's a very dangerous place." I said, "Uncle, I actually have to take a flight to Albuquerque in 3 hours. I wasn't planning on leaving the airport." And he said, "Oh no, I won't see you. When will you be back?" I said, "I have no idea, but we will meet at some point." So we chatted for about 5 minutes. And that was that. And then I was on another TWA flight to Albuquerque.
Wow.
So the school had written, the letter saying, "We will be there to pick you up." And the school is 3 hours from Albuquerque Airport.
3 hour drive.
3 hour drive.
Yeah.
So by the time I ended up in Albuquerque Airport, it was 11 o'clock in the evening. Nobody there.
In the airport?
Nobody there, to pick me up. And because it was the last flight or something, within 5 minutes, everyone's gone. I'm in the airport by myself, basically. And so this is, you asked, what is your first time in the US? New York was daytime, and, I saw, it was like in the movies. But then, I got to, it was dark, it was, already in nighttime. And then I'm like, what do I do? Nobody's here. So I called the school. Remember, now this time I know how to make a payphone call. So I made a call, and the first thing the security guard picks up and says, "What's your name?" I said, "I'm a foreign student, coming into for the first for the semester this year." And he says, "What's your name?" So I said, "Sanjay Manandhar." And he said, "Hold on, let me look at this year's student list." "You're not on the list."
Damn.
I'm like, "How's that possible? You guys send me a ticket. You send me a letter saying, I got in. You send me I-20 so I could get my visa and all that. That's not possible."
And they funded it too, so you're definitely in the right place. Right?
I was certain, but this security guard was not. But I said, "Can I speak to Marcel?" I knew only one name of I was interacting with the president's wife. Her name is Sue, with the telex and all. Remember telex? It's not like Telegram, but it's like Telegram. So she was, but I didn't have the gall to ask for Sue. I asked for the math teacher because I knew Marcel was the math teacher. Never met him, but I knew that was the name. So the guy says, "But he's in bed." I said,
"Because it's 11 p.m.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I said, "Very, very sorry, but can you wake him up? I really want to speak with him." So I stayed on hold for about 10 or 15 minutes. Seemed a long time. Marcel, he's the math teacher, and he's from Quebec. He said, "Hey, Sanjay, how are you? You made it. So glad to hear your voice. We're just talking about you and your scholarship today. We're wondering whether you're going to come."
Yeah.
I said, "I'm here." "Hold on. They tell me you're not on the list. Let me see." "Oh," he said, "I know what happened. They put your last name as Kathmandu."
What?
So it was Kathmandu, Sanjay. So of course they couldn't find Manandhar. Says, "Okay, you're good. We're happy that you're here. Sanjay, listen, the school is 3 hours away from the airport. We can't come to pick you up now. Why don't you go to a hotel and take the first train? It's like 8:15 or whatever in the morning, and the train will bring you to Las Vegas, New Mexico, and we'll be there to pick you up." I said, "Okay, great." My next problem was, how do I get to a hotel? And then, of course, in those days, there'd be banks of branded phones. So there'd be it's a small place. So there'd be like Motel 6 phone. There'd be, some other phone. So there's about 30 of them. And because these are branded phones, they'll make a direct call to the hotel.
The hotel.
So I didn't have to do payphone. None of them had a room. I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I went back to one guy who seemed nice and all, and picked that phone up and he said, and I told him, please, I just need for 8 hours. And he says, okay, you have to pay in cash. Come. So
On Itibara, you have the American.
now American Express will change better middle cash
Cash
issue. I know. So and then of course there in those days there are taxis, and I took the taxi to this hotel which was nearby, like 2 or 3 miles, and I paid him in cash. And I think what happened was one of his guests was hiking in the mountains and didn't need the room, so chuttu milara, he just pocketed the money, and
Wow.
I got someone else's room for 8 hours. And then anyway, Volipolta, I went to the station and I'm like, holy cow, it's all red. It's like John Wayne Country. This is like in the movies. I didn't know place like this existed. But anyway, and then took the train. 3 hours later at the Montezuma, at the Las Vegas, New Mexico, my housemaster and some friends were there to greet me, and it's 5 miles from there to the college.
So because you said, it's all red, and your first impression, how US the first impression, even the same impression for me was tall buildings, like
that's New York, right? I know,
right? So everyone
skyscrapers,
New York, everywhere. So is that something that you thought about?
Of course, I mean, we saw movies, right? I mean, and you guys, of course, saw different, social media and all that. But we saw movies every Friday night at St. Xavier's, Godari. It would be movie night. So we knew what the U.S. looked like, but we also knew, Western movies. So I'm like, I'm in a Western set, this is not like a normal. So anyway, but no, the 2 years in United World College was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, there were 200 students, 100 each year, first year, second year, and there were 60 countries represented. And I got a scholarship put together by a widow named Anna Bing Arnold. And then after 2 years, I went to visit her. She was out of LA, and she was so happy to see me. So that impression stayed with me. And also at this school, I just went all out. I'm like, this
all
is
as in
like take advantage of all the opportunities life provides, right? So I learned, cross country ski, downhill ski, skating, rock climbing. I was in search and rescue team and all that. But I was just like, all rounder over there. But I won the Best Boy Award at St. Xavier's, which is also academic, sports.
It's like the way you're saying it's so humble, but I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, whoa, that's it's a big deal. So anyways, the 2 years, you made the best out of your experience there, right? So what after that? Because I'm thinking MIT, like how is this connecting?
So you have to take 6 classes, 3 high level, 3 subsidiary level ones. I mean, high levels were math, chemistry, physics. And the guidance counselor, I still remember, Dan Hunter, he said, Sanjay, your math, chemistry, physics, your high level course scores are amazing. You should apply to MIT. And I said, what's MIT? And he says, just apply, see if you get in. And I said, I'm a poor kid from Nepal. My parents don't have funds to send me to any college in the US. No, MIT is needs blind. That means they'll cover the delta. And I said, my delta is going to be 100%. I said, okay.
Wait, for people that don't know what delta is.
Delta is like your need. So if your parents can provide 20%, the college provides 80%. In my case,
100%.
The Nepalese rupees will convert to almost nothing, zero, not even pocket money, right? Close to zero. So I said, my parents can provide zero. So can MIT provide 100%? And so turned out I got in, and MIT gave 100% scholarship. And I always wanted to be an engineer, electrical engineering kid. And so at MIT here, they call it 6-1, course 6. So I, enrolled and graduated undergrad, and then of course through MIT I went to Silicon Valley companies like Sun Microsystems, and then came back to Cambridge for 9X and Siemens and all that. And then here at the Media Lab, I had a Europe. Europe means undergraduate research opportunity program, and the I didn't know it at the time, but '89 when I graduated from college was a down year. It was there's a recession.
Sanjay, so
Yes.
before we move after college, let's talk a little bit more MIT about it.
Yep. Okay.
So I'm guessing at this point, about international student धेरै हुँदैन थियो भयो. MIT मा you're probably one of the only Nepali.
There was one other St. Xavier's guy.
Right.
He was 4 years ahead of me in Monoshahi. He was, St. Xavier's, he was 4 years ahead, but MIT, he was 1 year ahead of me. And he came directly from Nepal. He didn't do the whole UW's thing and all that. So 2 times, some of my mindset only bhayisakyo.
Right, but there's still a little. So, what was your first impression on MIT, or just you? Like,
So I came in, I came in August, I remember. Remember, UW paid for me to go back to Nepal. So I was in Nepal for the summer, part of the summer. I was traveling and all that. And then I come for the first time in Boston, and I'll tell you, it is August, beautiful summer day. And there are sailboats on the Charles River. And I thought, wow, I'm a kid from landlocked country. It'd be amazing to learn how to sail. And someone told me, you can learn how to sail as part of your intramurals, like a club. So, okay, I'll sign up. That's the first thing I signed up in the fall.
Wow.
And I learned how to sail in the Charles. And then, there were so many things. I know in the US, and I think even current Nepali kids, they have a lot of resources. They can ask ChatGPT, they can ask their friends, they can ask their parents. In 1985, when I ended up in Cambridge, there was no internet. There was nobody to ask.
Oh, in 1985,
83 in New Mexico, and after 2 years, I'm here. So I didn't know how to pick a dorm. What does it mean to pick a dorm? And MIT orientation, there's this thing called Rush Wanza. So Rushma, all the different fraternities and dorms and all, they try to get you to sign up with them. And I didn't even know what fraternity was. I didn't know what Rush was. So I ended up at a dorm right by the Charles River, Burton House. And Koso Burton 1. So international students get to come 5 days before, and we have our own orientation before the main orientation. So they're all my year from all sorts of countries. And turns out that those 5 days gave us a special bond, and we ended up on Burton 1. And Burton 1 has a lot of international students, and I'm still in touch with most of them, right? It's just an amazing, network within the MIT network. We're all sort of tourists. We're like, true. I mean, because you can't call home.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so expensive to call. You don't call home. In fact, I don't know, your viewers won't know what an aerogram is. Aerogram is a little, like a postcard type thing. You fold 2 times and, trifolds, and then you write on it, and then fold and send it. That would take about 2 months. And my parents would also write back in an aerogram. That take about 2 months. So you don't talk about everyday stuff. You talk about big things. Hey, mom and dad, I end up going to this particular dorm. This is my new address. I signed up for some electrical engineering courses, blah, blah, blah. You can't talk about, weather was great. This is one million.
Because what you're doing right now, it's like full, last 3 months is the bio, and then
and it's like almost like an essay, and over time they collect. So now you have a history of what you were talking about. So
wow. So त्यो भयो, and then that was pretty much MIT, right?
Yeah, and MIT, I'll tell you, for people who may not know, graduate, and especially Sloan, MIT MBA, MIT undergraduate is brutal. It was tough. I mean, I was without, again, it's just the way it is. St. Xavier's, UW, I worked hard, but honestly, I was near the top. MIT, you work your butt off, and you're like about average. So it creates a really weird, almost imposter syndrome, that are not imposter syndrome so much, but what's wrong with what I'm doing type of mindset. Because you're a star student throughout your career, throughout your life. up to that point, and suddenly you're an average person. And that's because MIT is just brutally tough.
Wow.
Especially electrical engineering was like that.
Because like a lot of people there, everyone's very driven and
they're driven, they're smart, they've always been smart, and हाम्रो training पनि नेपालमा it's still a little bit rote त्यो बेलामा. Here they're very thoughtful in this and that. I mean, as an example, भनौँ न एउटा test or problem set, you know, you work very, very hard and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, you're wondering how you did. And there are people who leave the exam hall in half the time. They're done. And then they'll get 100%.
damn.
And you'll get 65%. So, you know, it's just the way they were trained, the way they are genetically or whatever, and you are average. But what much later I realized is being in a place, and this is not just MIT, but many places which is very, very tough. It's like going to the gym, right? Let's say you bench press, you know, at the gym, 100 pounds, 200 pounds. Garo cha, I know, but you manage to do it. But the world is not all a gym. So when you have to lift light things, it is much easier. So MIT is like a very tough gym. They make you do so many tough things that anything before or after is easy.
Easy. So okay, before we transition from MIT, let's hear your best moment in it. That was your most challenging, but what was your best moment in MIT?
Oh my gosh, there's so many.
Only one, because I feel like we still have time to talk.
Oh my gosh, so there's a very, very tough. I mean, there are just so many. One might be, there's a tradition called hacking at MIT. Hacking implies doing just
it's not like the online
no. Hacking is basically doing spoofs. You know, upatra garne basically, right? But it has to be anonymous and it cannot hurt anyone. So the famous ones are on top of MIT Dome. They put a police car. How did they get the police car up there? Nobody knows, because remember it's anonymous. You cannot. But also nobody knew it was. You know, how did they do it? And the police car had the lights going. There were half-eaten donuts inside and all that. And the one that I remember is you know, Burton One Kusatiko. He comes to his room and they're like, it was completely empty. What happened here? Where's my furniture? Remember, I said Burton is next to the river. Winter at that river is completely frozen. So you can almost walk across. So there's some people that did hacking of this guy's dorm room, took everything and recreated just the way his room is in the middle of the Charles. So those are amazing hacking stories that they're at MIT. To the, you know, the people in my community did that, but already government that's how they saw.
That's like, I have some MIT friends that I never heard about this.
Yeah, they're hacking. They're called hacks, you know, like famous hacks.
Wow.
Yeah, MIT is like that. It's very irreverent. The types of people that go here also slightly weird, different, and they don't thump their chest as much. They don't need to scream from the rooftops. I know. Just, you know, I call it quiet confidence.
Humble.
Quiet confidence. They can get shit done, but they don't need to talk about it. That's the mental. Very
wow. Wow. So about MIT, you are a graduate guy, right? So now professional life. So internships, you know, companies you started, tech fund, like internet to Nepal, like what's going on?
Yeah, so, you know, the people at MIT, they're well connected enough that I managed to get, you know, an internship at Sun Microsystems, which was like being at Google nowadays, or, you know, Meta or whatever, in Silicon Valley. And
for timeline, when was this?
This was my junior year, junior and senior year, 1988.
Wow.
And it was at the Media Lab, this building next door, which was the old Media Lab, and I was with the speech group. And in the speech group, we were looking at how digital audio works, especially in the computers and all that. Now everyone's familiar with digital audio. तर उ जमानामा कम्प्युटर्समा audio भन्ने नै थिएन. So because it was just starting to happen at the speech group, we were working with Sun, and I remember very distinctly. Remember, AT&T would charge you long distance calls, like 30 cents a minute for long distance.
Titi which is expensive.
Very expensive.
Very expensive, yeah.
So in fact, there were times we would look at our watch to see how long it has been. And Nepal was about $3 a minute. So I at least never called Nepal. Anyway, when you're dealing with digital audio and, duita Sun machines, so, and Sun only dabbled. They weren't serious down the road, but dabbled in digital audio using audio cards. And basically, with the speech group, we were working with this. So speech to your audio card, a mic of one card to the speaker of another, and vice versa. You're using data networks to now talk between these 2 points. And because it doesn't use AT&T's network, it's free. MIT-le आफ्नो bandwidth तिरेछ, Sun-le तिरेछ, so you're just jumping on top of it. So it's called arbitrage. So basically, you paid zero and made a phone call that didn't need to end.
For as long as you were, yeah. Wow.
And that was in '88, and that was the kernel of saying, if I can do this between California and Cambridge, I should be able to do this between the US and Nepal. But I was, and then soon after I joined the speech group in the PhD program at the Media Lab. The PhDs at MIT would take about 9 years. And I thought, oh my God, that's too long.
9 years to finish?
Yeah. And so I told my supervisor, would it be amazing if I could just get a master's and leave? How long will it take? So it'll take 2 years. Okay, fine. What do I need to do? Well, you need to do all these things, your research, and then write a thesis. It's okay, fine. So in '91, I got master's from MIT. Yeah. And then I joined Siemens. I had consultancies and all that. As a grad student, I used to consult. And so I then realized, oh, wow, this is like good money. And that's writing code. So
what were you consulting on?
So 9X it's called Verizon. New England Exchange 9X. So 9X wanted to use their pipes, telecom pipes, for heavy data. They looked around and said, what is heavy? Heavy data is not voice. And data ta aakai thiena, so this is like 89, 90. Heavy is medical imaging data. And medical imaging what was happening was ACR Nima manera, you could get MRI slices. So let's say you put someone in the MRI machine, those are just starting to happen. And every slice is a file. I know. Wow. So, and it's black and white. So they gave me data that was basically someone's brain scan. They said, doctors don't think in terms of files. They think in terms of visual, 2D, 3D. So can you take all these files, figure out what is what, and make it visible? So that was and if you science is very lazy. If I can get away
it's hard to believe. It's hard
I do think a lot, but I don't act enough, I feel. But anyway, so the whole summer, they're paying me full time, and I'm not doing anything. But I have these files. And so and this is what I enjoy about life, It's lots of puzzles, and I like solving puzzles and all that. The files have what they call header and data. To header, there's a lot of different elements, different things. One easy one is a sequence number. First file, second file, third file, And then the interesting thing is it also has what they call color map and all that, which basically says to file data like represent. So basically, I thought about it, lazy the whole summer, and finally I said, I better do something. So, but I had it figured out in my head. So I wrote a C code. It was about 100 lines of code.
Wow.
So you take each of the files, put them in the right order, read them. On your time, balla balla windowing system niskaya थियो MIT बाटै आएको
Windowing भने
window. So basically, how to manipulate Windows. I know this is at the same time as Apple had Windows. Microsoft got the windowing system I think.
Wow.
But and MIT बाट निस्केको एउटा technology was called X window system. X window system later, what I did was I put a little slider. So as you slide, you see from front, and as you slide back to front.
Wow.
So that was the 100-line code. They liked it so much that they embedded that inside much bigger 9X product. And then I realized, wow, for the first time I realized that's intellectual property, that's IP. And so as a result, from that perspective, what do you pay a summer intern at the graduate level? Not much. I mean, but for me it was a lot, but for them it wasn't much for what I created for them. So anyway, that was my first introduction to medical imaging.
Wow.
अनि आजकल त डाइकम भन्छ एसिया निमा भन्ने चिज आजकल डाइकम भइसक्यो. So meaning that industry itself has moved forward quite a bit, and now there's not only MRI, and what I was doing was 2D. Now you can get 3D. You can twirl the brain, and now you can be ready for surgical planning. Blah blah blah. So anyway, that was that, and then I ended up joining Siemens because I knew I took German at MIT, so I spoke German. So I thought, well, it'd be nice to work in Germany. Siemens Germany, man, I got an offer, and I was ready to go to Munich. But Nepali passport, the work visa did not work out. And I still remember my my manager to be, Germany man. His name was Grollman, Herr Grollman. He was furious. He's like, what the F? We are Siemens. We pay these damn, bureaucrats salaries. What do you mean, this kid's, work visa didn't work out? And he's like, we've applied for so many work visas. None of them are come back rejected. We're going to apply again, Sanjay. Don't worry. I said, Herr Gorman, it's okay. I'll just find a job in the US. So a headhunter just randomly, called me in my office at the Media Lab. And I took the call and said, I can place you anywhere. I said, okay, whatever. Wow. I didn't know what that meant, but anyway, he took my resume and shopped it around and all. He got me a job at Siemens in Cambridge.
Wow, so full service. Siemens Germany, no, Cambridge.
Coincidental. And the answer, we were 65 engineers. And it was, in fact, it's the Google building now across the street. It's 4 CC ones, 4 Cambridge Center. We're on the 8th floor. I was there about 3 years, basically writing code for multimedia products.
You said timeline like
91 to 94. April 94, a big boss from Germany comes and says, we're going to have all hands meeting in 10 baje. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. So it's too early, whatever. So the first thing he says is, the password's been changed and we don't need to see you here tomorrow. I was like 25 or so. I couldn't even understand what that meant. But my colleagues, 65 engineers, moms and dads with mortgages, kids, they're devastated. So that was the time I made up my mind.
So for people that's watching, that's basically you being fired.
You being fired.
65 people.
All 65 engineers, no job. And that basically is the reason I told myself, when I'm their age, I'm not going to be under that kind of situation where I have no control and agency. So anyway, and there's always a silver lining in every dark cloud. And here I said, that thing I was doing in 1988, moving data using, moving documents.
98 or 88?
88. As a grad student, I was working with audio, and then I didn't pay AT&T anything.
So the thing you were doing with...
And I thought, now that I don't have a job with Siemens, maybe it's a good time to bring internet to Nepal. I did not want to go to Nepal Telecom. So if you're not going through the land, you have to go through the sky. That means satellites. I said, who has a satellite? And which satellite goes over Kathmandu? So again, pre-internet. So I went to Sloan Library, MIT Business School Library, and I looked up all the names that have satellites. Number one, but all the ones that that go over Kathmandu was of interest to me. I thought, maybe there's a satellite that.
So there's no internet, right?
No,
As in,
no,
like,
this
you can't
is
just Google everything.
No,
So you went
that's why to the library and Faltara.
Oh my God.
There's a sort of a directory of all the satellite providers.
Yeah.
And then one, and this is pure dumb luck. And again, I think your viewers know this. The more you work, the more harder you work, the luckier you get. So I knew I wanted to do this. I went to look for the satellite, directory, and there's just one that there was a satellite that went over Kathmandu. It's a LEO, low Earth orbiting satellite, and all LEOs go over same point on Earth, gari, just like that, every 90 minutes. This one was owned by a nonprofit called HealthNet. That was a lucky break because now I could call the nonprofit and say, hey, can I get time on your satellite? The satellite time is expensive, like very expensive, like not hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions. So they said, who are you? I said, I'm an MIT engineer and I want time on your satellite. Oh, you're from Nepal. Okay, good. We'll give you a black brick, which is basically a ground station for their satellite only. And that was, I think, April or May of '94. And in those days, there would be dial-up modems. I collected 10 modems. I bought 10 modems. And that was already a new technology. And then I went to Nepal with their brick. The brick ko kamse, it's a ground station. It only talks to their satellite. And then I basically said, okay, I'll, put this in, a teaching hospital. And I also bought a laptop. Laptop technology was also new. $4,500 for a compact laptop. And that was like a very big investment. And then
$4,500 for a
laptop.
A laptop, two zamana.
And then 10 modems, and then the brick, and I went to Nepal. And then I applied for a non-profit telephone number. By the way, two time telephone number bin pauna garo NTC bada. So we got one. And so anyway, I distributed the 10 modems to all the hospitals, Santa Bhavan, Beer Hospital, and all that, Patna Hospital, all that. And then they could make a call, and we had an email client. So you can write your email, and it gets delivered via the modem. So you're basically making a local call and then transferring this data. And the central point was this compact laptop. If the email was meant for a point outside Nepal, the laptop would wait and give it to the brick, and the brick would give it to the bird. And every 90 minutes, satellite led to Lear's answer. And then it dropped it at Cambridge, Rogers Street. HealthNet main office was at Rogers Street in Cambridge. And so now, suddenly, what needed to go out is out. Right? Without ever including Nepal Telecom. I mean, whatever needed to go into Nepal, the bird brought it back and gave it to the black brick, and the black brick gave it to the compact laptop, and the compact laptop waited for that hospital to call in and call rather, hey, you to tero la.
Wow.
So that was how email went through, August '94. And then at the same time, Sanjay Manandhar from Mercantile came to see me at the teaching hospital and said, I have a team, but data was not transferring yet. So I helped that team, do a for-profit ISP as well. But, net, it was such an amazing time to do new things. But the downside was that Nepal was very corrupt. And that got to me. And, okay, when Nepal parkinchu for good one, I said, I'm out of here.
And how long did you stay with that Nepal?
6 months. And in that 6 months, I applied to one business school, which was INSEAD, which was in France. And why INSEAD? Because it was 1 year, number one, and another MIT friend had gone earlier, and he said, you can even drive an American car in Nepal, in France, in Fontainebleau. And I came back, put my car on a boat in Boston, and 3 months you can pick it up in La Havre. and you can drive around with the American plate for up to 1 year. So 95, I entered this program, and middle of 96, I was done. My offers were from large tech companies, Motorola, AT&T. And remember, Siemens quick experience, but I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. Let me try something else. So I told my professor, and he said, why don't you run tech funds? Like, what? I'm not a fund manager.
So tech fund, it's basically like a VC fund, right?
Yeah, VCs are funds for private companies. Hamro tech fund is like Fidelity, small Fidelity. 12 billion pounds under management. The name of the company was Newton Investment Management. Newton was my boss's last name. Stuart Newton was the guy that put this 12 billion together. And the fund managers were mostly old people, 70s, even 80s with you. So because of how they thought about this money, and this money is like old ladies' retirement money. So you have to be very careful with that money. So as a result, they're very, very conservative, and they had zero in tech. Because tech, they felt, is volatile. It goes up and down. So, but Stuart Newton was very prescient and very smart that way. He said, look around us, there's so much tech. Find the right tech kid, the kid that understands tech. And I happen to be that 30-year-old kid. And, again, most engineers won't even think about doing this. But my whole life, I feel like I'm always pushing the limit, pushing the envelope, and trying to learn new things. And here I am now in London, picking tech stocks, but public stocks only, not private, public matre.
So Ozzy's role was like a fund manager?
I'm a technology stock picker. That's what I am. Wow. And if anyone wants Newton to invest, they come see me. And some of these managers, we call them company managers, are big shots. Like as an example, John Chambers is a CEO of Cisco. I met him face to face with his CFO and an IR lady. And Cisco CEO, I'm a 30-year-old kid. This guy, I think he was probably about 55, 60 at the time. And he's like a big deal. And but I'm the investor. I get to ask him questions, and he has to answer them.
You invest in Cisco.
If I and based on his answers, I decide, invest in and then my team, my company will support me, and they would say things like, I did the analysis, but they almost didn't need analysis. They'd say, how strongly do you feel about Cisco? Oh, very strongly. Or, okay, sub funds are on sale, and they buy 3 million of Cisco stock.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm responsible now for 3 million of Cisco stock. But that's not how they don't finish there. एक भी दिन पछि अर्को 3 million
Hitting.
Within 2 months, or within a month, they bought 10 times. So I'm responsible for 30 million of Cisco stock. And so it's a different business. And the people, their profiles are different. Their values are different.
Different in what way though?
Different from engineers.
Another thing I have a follow-up question, Ismail, is how they just they don't run the analysis and they trust you. But how do I know? How do you believe that? How did that happen?
So of course, I knew the tech landscape. That was the most important skill, I think. The MBA gave me a way to basically read financial statements.
I guess to take a step back and any question appropriate is not how did you do that, but how did you build that trust where they just blindly go, hey, Sanjay said this, so I'm gonna bank on it. How do you build that trust?
I'm sure crawl, walk, run. They say, okay, let's do this little thing that he talked about. Oh, it went up. Okay. And he said it'd go up because blah, blah, blah. Cisco was one of my favorite names because remember, I brought internet Nepal and I knew about the internet happening. And by the way, I came to the MIT in 85 and I had an email address. All the students did, right? So, and then with Sun Microsystems and all that, I knew that data networks, you could use it to send all sorts of data, including, speech and audio and all that, So anyway, I felt Cisco was the pipe of the internet. So, Gari, what would you recommend now, Cisco? What did you recommend that last, 6 months ago? Yeah. They had made a lot of money from Coca-Cola, Coke. Mm-hmm. You wanted a Coke of technology. This is Coke of technology. And there was another guy named Jeff Bezos. He came. April 1997, man. He was going public. Amazon. So when you're about to go public, you do what they call a road show. अनि उसको रोड शोमा लन्डन आउँदाखेरि we could pick a slot. I picked a 45-minute slot with him. So I had a chat like this with him for 45 minutes.
Wow.
So my colleague, another fund manager, said, my uncle has a bookstore. How is this guy different? I said, okay, I'll ask him. I'm meeting him. So I asked Bezos the first question, how are you different from my friend's uncle's online bookstore? Oh, no, we're not an online bookstore. We are a technology company. I said, oh, okay, I'm the technology stock picker. Tell me. And one of the first things he says was, we build software. 80% of our employees are engineers that build software. Because it's our IP, we can even license it to our competitors like Target. He mentioned Target, even though in those days.
And Target they were still...
It's like this, earlier thing. But he saw them as a competitor. Amazon was nothing. And he said one other thing. We're basically, the books are just a database. We don't need a warehouse. We don't need to take possession of the physical goods. But also, now that we have the database, why do we need to limit ourselves to just books? We can sell other things. Remember, this is 1997.
Yeah.
Many years later, look what he's doing, right? Yeah. Then he also said, we'll make some big bets. Some will not work out, and some will be amazing successes. And AWS is one amazing success, and I personally use it all the time. I was so inspired by all that he said that when I had time and when I was back in the US, I actually wrote a Medium article on this, and it's still out there. You can just search Bezos and my name, and you'll get to my article. So some people are very visionaries, and they're thinking decades in advance. So that's a good example. But I did not want to be called an investor.
Right.
I enjoyed what happened in Nepal. So I said, I want to build companies. And so as a result, I basically became a VC for 1 year. I did not enjoy it because the people that it attracts are different. At least it was in those days in the UK. Then I joined a startup in the UK.
But can we put timelines to this as well, just so...
VC for exactly 1 year was 1999, late. The startup was year 2000, or late 1999, and then 2000. I was there about a year, but remember, I came from the market, so I had seen how the markets move, and I was understanding how the markets do. And in late 1999, early 2000, the market was way up there. We call it giving you nosebleed. It's so high that you get nosebleed. But when you have a nosebleed valuation in the market, it's going to correct, which means it's going to come down. Sometimes when it comes down, it goes below the natural mean. It goes way, it's called being oversold. So I knew we were at a point in the market where we're all getting nosebleed. And because now as part of a private company, which was trying to go public, I said to my CEO, listen, we need to go public now, IPO now, because this market is going to crash soon. No. The comparables in the US, remember we're in London. The comparables means like our company in the US, comparables in the US are worth 2 billion and all that. And so if we hold out a little bit longer, maybe 2 or 3 quarters, we'll get a better valuation. I think our valuation was about 250 million, but he wanted to get to 2 billion number, right? Mm-hmm. So I was thinking, man, you don't even have 2 weeks. Forget 2 quarters. This thing is going to crash. And so independently, because of my stock picking record, I actually managed money for two different gentlemen independently on the side.
Right.
So I was getting worried about, I mean, myself, I didn't have a lot of assets, but they did. So, but I was managing for them and I was worried for their assets. Dude,
Sorry.
I mean, I will not be personally responsible, but I'll feel bad. So I told them, guys, go into cash. Here's your login. So these e-trades also, it was starting to happen. And they gave me their login. They get to see what I'm doing and all, but they don't intervene. And that was a side business I was doing.
Yeah.
And I said, here's your login. I don't want nothing to do with it because you need to go into cash. They didn't want to go into cash. Then I cannot help you. This market is very dangerous. हाम्रो CEO level भने मैले, I was like a VP level guy, and he did not listen to me. We were 6 days from IPO.
Wow.
And then Merrill Lynch was our banker, and he said, the guy came and said, the market's wobbly. Let's find a better time. But remember, I worked in the market. So what that is code for the market's bad. We're not, it's going to, or at least you won't go public soon. So I remember I had just gotten married to my wife, Nepal, a few months prior, and I came home and I said, we'll never go public. So now one day it crashed, disaster everywhere. And I said, I have this idea. I want to go back to the US and execute on that idea. And so, and unfortunately 9/11 happened at the time. And then I came back to the US, Cambridge area. And the idea was, wouldn't it be amazing to use your browser to manage screens that you control? Ani poster huन्थ्यो जमानामा. Posters were slowly changing to be digital screens. And a screen like this called plasma screen would be $5,000. But I knew that the hardware prices would keep coming down. So larger and larger screens would be less and less money. So if it's very cheap, we won't buy a lot of screens. Why would you need a poster?
Yeah, why would you use posters?
Yeah. But once it's a screen, digital screen, you could use a browser to change the content. And so we created a software to allow you to manage content on screens that you control. So, I was bootstrapped. So bootstrapping is tough, but I felt, that's the only way,
For people that don't know bootstrap
means आफैले पैसा हालेर. Yeah, so you can take venture money or angel money and all that. That's other people's money. OPM is OPM, other people's money. I told my wife, would it be okay if we, use our savings account? And she said, if not now, when? And so I thought, oh my gosh, we better do it then. So we ended up bootstrapping, and it was a 10-year journey. But same people, every year we hired one new person, and they all stayed with me. Very durable team, and we were in about 10,000 endpoints. Endpoint one, you screen. Right. So you buy the screen, you get a login from us, you upload your content, and behind the scenes, that content was in AWS. Wow. And then our software allowed you to lay it out, schedule it, and then if you're selling ads, you can get reports on your ads, and so that was a business, and you got to pay us $1,000 per license per year.
Wow!
And we're about 10,000 licenses globally in 6 countries. We're 10 people and me. So the investors 10,000. So if you flew into any airport in Australia and New Zealand, outdoor, indoor, kuनै पनि screen, baggage control, passport control. LED screen outside would be our screen, and to managing it.
To paint a picture, it's to hack it, like the boards, and then the content keeps changing. That's the thing.
The content load गर्ने, change गर्ने, layout change गर्ने, report लिने, that's our software.
Wow.
And we're screen agnostic, meaning any screen will do. यहाँ नजिकै Boston Convention Center, they have 83 screens. I know it. बाहिर एउटा छ, अरु सबै भित्र छ. They also own the Heinz Convention Center. They have more screens there. Those are both semi-government entities, and we won that contract in our RFP. The crazy part is that it was 10 people. And Canada, Mexico, we had 800 screens that we manage in nightclubs and restaurants and all that.
Wow.
So I think, especially a country like the US, you just need a vision and a goal. And often you have the leeway to make it happen. And so without any outside capital, we exited in 2015. And after that, I just kept building other companies, including a facial recognition company. And from there, I decided, more than that, the better total addressable market, also called TAM, is in cybersecurity. And so today I'm doing a cybersecurity company that uses AI to defend. Because AI is being used to attack. And it's very, very different sorts of attacks, which are high volume, very sophisticated, and the products, cyber products you bought are not protecting the current generation of attacks. So, and then remediation, basically fixing your problems. Remediation done manually, that's not going to work. So I felt we need to use AI to defend and remediate also automatically. And I said, oh my gosh, how would you, is it okay to let AI remediate? I'm like, if you've flown a long haul flight in a big plane, the plane flies itself. The pilot is there for below 10,000 feet. But after that, the pilots can all go to sleep. The plane flies itself. So there's so many systems, they talk among themselves and coordinate and all that. Cyberman testing. So all of the businessmen testing. So Cyberman testing. So we're leading that charge.
So Oilico current project is cybersecurity AI.
Yeah.
I was going to ask so many other questions, but then that would be a whole 21 type episode. So I'm going to stick with, we're almost towards the end of the podcast too, right? So this is more, I think, emotional and personal to you. So at this point, you've had tech career, at least 20 plus years, right? And you've been in the US for almost 30 plus.
41 years.
41 years. So what's been the best moment for you, if you could choose one, and the most challenging?
There are a lot of best moments.
But consider one that if you were to always share every single time you met someone.
Wow, that's very, very tough. I think it's the day I was told you got the US Navy contract, sole sourced, which basically means after 4.5 years of due diligence, the US Navy gave us a contract that is just for ERVA, the company that I built. And I'm like, wow, it's almost unreal. But what happens is the 4.5 years of diligence, they look at everything. And we're very, our product was very good in terms of especially security and all that. But basically it was managing content on screens for them. And we did Times Square billboards and all that, but the Navy was interesting in that it was super secure. And, if you see any screen in any naval base or shipyard, it's still using our software. So it started with NUIC. NUIC stands for Newport Undersea Warfare Center. The anchor examiner, he basically, wanted, it was his vision. We're just a vehicle. And he wanted to have a web-based mechanism to manage content any screen, anywhere in the world. By the way, Navy is a global enterprise. It is.
It is, right?
Because
everywhere.
They have screens in ships and all that as well. So, and then they have naval bases everywhere. So anywhere you see a screen, it's using a software. And so after NUIC, it was Pearl Harbor. And I've never been in a naval base as big as Pearl Harbor like that. Like it's a very massive operation, and we are even in the screens that we manage are in their nuclear submarine, sheds. So mechanics who have to do maintenance, they don't carry laptops. They look at the screen and they see SOPs. SOP stands for Standard Operating Procedures. And then after the initial 1 or 2, 35 naval bases came right after another. And that's because we're sole sourced. They have to buy our software. So, and, I'm a poor kid from Nepal. My 10% company, 11% company is selling to the US Navy as a sole contractor.
And US Navy's
It's big.
Yes,
And
we only-
pretty, because we're only software, we don't sell the screens or hang the screens. And you hang in bang. So, two government, but they are our subcontractors. Those companies are multi-billion-dollar companies. And yet, because we got the sole source, we are considered the prime contractor. And we have to give the work that we don't do to hang the screen and connect and test and all that to this multi-billion-dollar company, and they're a subcontractor to us. So that's sort of a weird and a proud moment. So what that says is anyone can do it. Just be diligent and go for your dreams and goals, and it can absolutely happen.
Wow. So Azrali, you've already given a bunch of advice, right? Nuts and bolts. So for all the viewers, if you could give them one piece or two pieces of advice, what would it be?
I think I just said it in the end, which is go for your dreams. Don't compromise. It's not going to be easy all the time, but if you go for your dreams and keep making incremental advances towards it, I think it's possible. In fact, I have so many stories and other people's stories as well that I'm thinking of writing a book, which will come out in 2026, and it's basically about that whole thing. Go after your dreams. It's possible. Not just even getting a project ready for your boss is a dream. It's a goal. So have a very and if you have two views, two dashboards, a compass and a speedometer. The compass has to come first. You need to know what direction you're going in. Then speed is important. Because if you're off by a little bit, and say you're flying a jet, 1 degree deviation, after 2 hours of flying, you're in a different city, different country. So you need to get your direction right. But once you get your direction right, just keep going, increase the speed. If you want to go to the US, as I had this goal in 82, my friends had told me, this is it's not going to work. What are you doing? And I said, I know, it's a little crazy, and the probability is very low, but it's a non-zero low probability.
There's still a chance.
There's a small chance. That was the small chance that got me here. So I want to write a book about those kinds of endeavors, not just by me, and I have a lot of stories I'll bring. One is, a Czech Republic colleague of mine, a friend of mine, who did the first facial transplant at Brigham Women's Hospital. But he also came from Czech Republic, and Czech Republic, when he was growing up, was part of Soviet Union. And in fact, he says the reason I want to be a MD is because it's non-political. And he was a microplastic surgeon, and he was working on people that had burns and all that. And then this guy, he fell on the third rail in Ruggles. On the electrical, burns McCune. It vaporizes everything, including bones and all. So he had a big hole on the second half of face thinner. So someone died on an operating table, and they took lower half of his face and transplanted on him. So I thought, you're from Czech Republic. How did you think to do this? Same. He put a compass, set a direction, and then he put gentle speed to it. And after many years, he's doing the first facial transplant. And he's another kid like me from Czech Republic. Yeah. Wow. So it's possible.
So if I was to flip the script and you had to change one thing or do something differently in your 40, 30 plus years of career.
I mean, you can't see the future. There's no crystal ball. I think just staying in Silicon Valley in 88, 89 would have been perfect. But again, and the reason Silicon Valley and all that is because I'm also very outdoorsy. And I got my first mountain bike in 88. And mountain bike, like adults didn't have mountain bikes. the kids had little things called BMX bikes. And
Oh yeah, BMX.
right. So adults had normal road bikes. But adults said, "The kids are having too much fun. We want some of that fun." And they made the BMX bigger, and that's called a mountain bike. First mountain bikes happened in '88 in California and specialized in, these were the names. And I got a specialized bike then, and I would go everywhere with my son, Mike's buddies. And California suited me. But, I wanted bigger challenges, so I went to France and UK and all that, Nepal and all. I got a different kind of experience. So, this is not, yeah. So, but the tech revolution was different, right? And I didn't see how big it could become someday.
Okay, so we are towards the end of the podcast.
Okay.
So we're making this a ritual, which is we're doing a rapid fire round.
Okay.
Where we're asking 6 to 7 quick questions. On the first thing that comes to your mind, you got to answer it.
Okay.
Okay. So first question, best Nepali restaurant in Boston?
Nirajanko restaurant.
Juzu Momo.
Juzu Momo.
One thing you miss the most about Nepal?
Hiking, trekking.
One food you love but is hard to find in the US?
Sukuti.
Oh yeah, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. So favorite Nepali festival to celebrate in the US?
I wish Indra Jatra was here, but that's my favorite festival.
You're the first person that said that. Some of them, Dasai Tiha, that's the answer you get. But okay, so if your friends and family ever visited Boston,
yeah,
what's the first place you take them to? Don't say MIT. I feel like that's what you
No, I would take them to the public gardens. It's the first public garden in the country. Boston Public Garden.
Your best Nepali song at the moment?
I don't know the latest songs, but my favorite has always been Musu Musu Hasideo.
I like it. Okay, so this is the last question.
Okay.
So what's the one Nepali word or phrase you would teach your non-Nepali friends besides Namaste?
After Namaste and Momo, it'll have to be, does Momo count?
Momo counts.
Yeah, Momo.
That's what Momo is.
Yeah, what Momo is. Yeah.
And that's a wrap, guys. So if you want more guests like Sanjay Dai, who's gonna share their stories and insights, please comment down below and subscribe.
Yay. Go for it.